Hello students, myself Dhananjay Kulkarni, teacher in physics at Ferguson College. I'll be discussing with you chapter number 13 AC circuits, for which now we'll switch over to PowerPoint presentation. Now the electricity that is supplied to us are of two types. One is a direct current, that is abbreviated as DC, in which there are fixed polarities of the voltage. There is positive end and negative end of the power supply which are fixed. And the other type is alternating current. In short, we call it as AC. Polarity of voltage keeps on changing periodically. Here is the first diagram in which we can see the alternating current. The current varies with respect to time. Initially, the current is 0, which increases, it is maximum, then it goes down, reaches to 0, then the direction of the current is reversed, it goes to the peak value and again comes back to 0 of alternating current. Whereas in case of direct current, the magnitude as well as direction of the voltage or current, it remains constant, that we can see in this diagram. Direct current, we apply the source of direct current, that is battery or a cell, and here is the current is flowing through the resistor. This is direct current which has constant magnitude and the same direction. In this another diagram, there is a source of alternating current which is shown in the form of sine wave, and in one half cycle of AC, current flows in one direction, and in next half cycle of AC, current flows in the opposite direction. Same thing can be seen here. Although the positive and negative signs are shown to the source, when we draw diagram, usually we don't show. Here I have just shown for you to understand that in positive half cycle, current flows in one direction. Here the current is flowing in anti-clockwise direction. And in the negative half cycle, current is flowing in the reverse, that is anti-clockwise direction. Now, another distinguishing feature between DC and AC is DC shock is repulsive. DC has a fixed value. For example, if you have 220 volt DC source supply, then it will give you constant 220 volt supply. Whereas AC shock is attractive. Value of alternating current is time varying. For example, if you have 220 volt AC source, then the supply voltage is √2 times the 220 volt. So that's why the peak value of the voltage, it goes to 311. So if you compare 220 volt DC with 220 volt AC, we understand that DC supply will give exactly 220 volt, but AC supply, which gives time varying voltage, whose peak value can reach to 311 volt. Plus and minus sign are used to indicate the direction of the voltage, and that's why AC shock is more dangerous than DC. Now, what are the advantages of AC over DC? The electricity is mostly supplied as AC because of low cost and convenience of transport. AC voltage can be transmitted to distant places at very small loss of electric power. AC current can be controlled by using a choke coil without any appreciable loss of electrical energy. AC voltage can easily be stepped up or down efficiently using transformer. AC can be easily converted to DC using rectifier. Rectifier is a device which converts alternating current into direct current, so it becomes easy to convert AC to DC. Now there are some appliances which use rectifier to convert AC to DC. Which are they? Television, computer, transistor, radio. These are the devices which converts AC to DC. There are some domestic devices which are operated directly on AC, like fan, refrigerator, air conditioner, induction heater, coil heater, etc. Now in earlier chapter, that is electromagnetic induction, you have studied Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. There are two laws, Faraday's first law and Faraday's second law. After that, there is Lenz's law. Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction along with Lenz's law together are called as laws of electromagnetic induction. Let us revise those concepts with the help of this picture and the animation. First diagram on the right hand side is A. There is a simple experiment, coil and magnet experiment. Ends of the coil are connected to the sensitive galvanometer and there is a magnet. Red represents North Pole and blue represents South Pole. In the first diagram, magnet is steady with respect to coil. There is no relative motion between them. That time galvanometer shows zero deflection. Now let us consider that North Pole of the magnet is moved towards the coil. Now whenever magnet is in motion, the magnetic flux associated with the coil increases. Coil has the property of electromagnetic inertia, according to which it will try to oppose the change in the magnetic flux. Here the flux is increasing. So coil will try to oppose the increase in the magnetic flux, and for that it will generate electromotive force, and due to which the current will flow through the circuit, and that's why galvanometer shows deflection on one side of zero. You know that in galvanometer there is zero deflection at the center, then there are some deflections on one side, say right side, and there are some deflections on the right side. Accordingly it is calibrated. Now in the diagram C, the magnet is brought to a rest. There is no relative motion between the coil and the magnet. That time galvanometer shows zero deflection. And why is the galvanometer showing zero deflection? Because there is no current induced in the coil. Now if North Pole of the magnet is taken away from the coil, then in that case momentarily deflection is produced in the opposite direction. Because here when you are taking away North Pole of the magnet away from the coil, that time flux through the coil is withdrawn, and on account of electromagnetic inertia, coil will try to oppose this decrease in the flux. So it will generate its own electromotive force, and due to which the current will flow through the coil and galvanometer will show momentarily deflection on the opposite side. The same experiment can be repeated by moving the magnet faster. It is observed that faster you move the magnet, greater is the deflection produced. So when the North Pole of the magnet is brought faster towards the coil, that time deflection produced in the galvanometer is larger as compared to what we have observed in figure B. Here deflection was less, but in figure E the deflection produced is more, because you have moved the magnet faster. Due to that, the rate of change of magnetic flux associated with the coil increases, and that's why the amount of EMF generated in the coil will be more, which will cause the more current to flow through the coil, and hence the deflection in the galvanometer is more. Now, if you move South Pole faster towards the coil, that time the amount of deflection produced in the galvanometer will be more. So here we have observed that whenever there is relative motion between the coil and magnet, that time only current flows through the circuit. That time galvanometer shows deflection, because there is rate of change of magnetic flux associated with the coil. And greater is the speed of the magnet, more is the deflection produced. And this has been already explained in Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. The Faraday's first law states that whenever there is a change in magnetic flux in a closed circuit, an EMF is induced in the circuit. So here is another animation with the help of which we can clarify again our concept. There is a coil through which the current is passed, and that produces magnetic field in the surrounding region that you can see here. We have a solenoid through which the current is passed, that is producing magnetic field, and there is another coil. The terminals of the coil are connected to the bulb. So whenever the current carrying coil is moved towards the face of the coil to which bulb is connected, that time there is increase in the magnetic flux, you can see very clearly. due to which EMF is generated in the coil, so bulb will glow. And when the magnet is even taken away or the coil is taken away from the coil, that time also the EMF is generated in the coil, due to which the current will flow and the bulb will glow. There is another animation we can see here. There are two poles of the magnet. One is a north pole, other is a south pole. In between there is uniform magnetic field. And here the coil whose terminals are connected to the sensitive galvanometer is moving in the magnet. When the coil is moving, that time flux associated with the coil is changing, which causes an EMF to generate in the coil, due to which current flows and the deflection is produced in the coil. So this is Faraday's first law of electromagnetic induction. Faraday's first law talks about the cause of production of induced EMF or induced current. The second law talks about the magnitude of the induced current. The law states that the magnitude of induced EMF produced in the circuit is directly proportional to rate of change of magnetic flux linked with the circuit. And the mathematical expression which you have studied is EMF induced is minus d phi by dt. Suppose d phi is the flux change in time dt, then rate of change of flux is d phi by dt. So here EMF induced is given by minus d phi by dt. In order to understand this concept, we can see this animation. The flux, we know that flux is given by the formula phi, that is equal to B into A. And if I substitute in the expression, I get E is equal to minus d by dt of B into A. So here there are two ways to change the flux. Either you change B by keeping area of the coil constant, or B can be kept constant and you can vary the area of the coil in the magnetic field. And these two things can be clarified with the help of animation. Here vertical line represent the uniform magnetic field, parallel lines represent that the direction of the magnetic field is same, and spacing between the line represent the strength of the magnetic field. If the spacing between the line changes, then you are changing the magnitude of the magnetic field. Now coil is stationary and here you can see that the spacing is changed. If the lines are crowded, the strength of the magnetic field is increased, that is the magnitude of magnetic field is increased. So whenever you are increasing the strength of magnetic field, then on account of electromagnetic inertia, coil will try to oppose that, and in doing so, it will generate the current in the coil by itself, and that current we call it as induced current. So here you can, the another way to change the flux is you rotate the coil. Here the coil is being rotated. When the coil rotates, then area of the coil in the magnetic field changes. Due to that, flux associated with the coil changes, and due to that there is EMF induced in the coil. So here we can see that the coil is rotating, due to which area changes, and due to that EMF is generated in the coil, and it is sinusoidal EMF that can be seen here. Whereas you are only changing the strength of the magnetic field, that time flux increases. When flux increases, EMF is induced in order to oppose it. So these things can be cleared with the help of this animation. The second law states that the magnitude of the induced EMF produced in the circuit is directly proportional to rate of change of magnetic flux linked with the circuit. Now after that we have studied Lenz's law, and Lenz's law gives you the direction of induced EMF. The law states that the direction of induced current in a circuit is such that the magnetic field produced by the induced current opposes the change in the magnetic flux that induces the current. Let us understand with the help of this example, again coil and magnet experiment. We have a coil and there is a magnet, north pole of the magnet is facing the coil. When the north pole of the magnet is moved towards the coil, that time flux passing through the coil increases. As the flux increases, coil will try to oppose the increasing flux, and for that it will generate its own magnetic field which will oppose the increase in the magnetic flux due to motion of the magnet. So here the flux in the coil is generated due to the induced EMF in the coil. and that will oppose the increase in the magnetic flux. So if you try to increase the flux through the loop, induced field will oppose that increase. Another example, suppose the north pole of the magnet is taken away from the coil. That time flux passing through the coil will be withdrawn, it will decrease. So coil will generate its own magnetic field which will try to oppose this decrease in the magnetic field or magnetic induction. So it will generate its magnetic field which will be in the direction of original magnetic field due to the magnet. So in doing so, it will generate EMF, and that's why induced current will flow through the coil. So if you try to decrease the flux through the loop, induced field will replace that decrease. So this is Lenz's law, which states that the direction of induced current in a circuit is such that the magnetic field produced by the induced current opposes the change in the magnetic flux that induces the current. There is another picture. Again, it will clear the idea of Lenz's law more. We have a magnet. South pole of the magnet is facing the coil, and here is the coil. Ends of the coil are connected to the sensitive galvanometer. South pole of the magnet is moved towards the coil. On account of electromagnetic inertia, it will try to oppose the approaching magnet. If it has to oppose the approaching magnet, then in that case, face of the coil, which is facing the south pole of the magnet, should act as a south pole. And we know that in case of a current carrying coil, if the current flows in clockwise direction, then in that case, that face of the coil acts like a south pole. So that's why south pole of the coil will oppose the approaching movement of the south pole towards the coil. So that time, the deflection produced in the galvanometer will be on one side of 0. Now when the south pole of the magnet is taken away from the coil, then in that case the magnetic flux passing through this coil will be withdrawn. So coil will try to oppose that decrease in the magnetic flux. How will it decrease? How will it try to oppose? It will try to attract the south pole. And for the coil to attract the south pole, the face of the coil which is facing the south pole should act as a north pole. And for this to act as a north pole, anticlockwise current will be generated in the coil. Now here we can see that the direction of the current flowing through the coil is reverse, and that's why deflection produced in the galvanometer is on the reverse side. So coil will generate its own magnetic field, or it will generate its own EMF or induced current, which will try to oppose the relative motion between the coil and the magnet, and it is opposing the change of flux passing through the coil. So the induced field in a loop will oppose the change in the magnetic flux through the loop. After that, next topic is AC generator. This you have already studied in 10th standard. Simple construction. There are two pieces of the magnet, and in the uniform magnetic field, the coil is rotating. When the coil completes half rotation, current will flow through this circuit in one direction, and after it completes half rotation, the current will flow in the opposite direction. So direction as well as magnitude of the current will change. And why is the magnitude of the current changing? Because area of the coil in the magnetic field changes. That's why magnitude of the current will change, and even the direction also change. AC generator produces a time dependent EMF which is given by the formula E is equal to E naught sin omega t, where E naught is the peak, that is maximum value of the EMF, and omega is angular frequency of rotation of the coil. Current induced in a circuit is given by the formula I is equal to I naught sin omega t plus alpha. Now for current, phase is omega t plus alpha. For EMF, phase is omega t. So there is phase difference between the current and EMF. Here I naught is the peak or maximum value of EMF, and as I told, alpha is phase difference between instantaneous EMF and instantaneous current. Here precisely the word instantaneous is being used because at instant t the current is I. At instant t EMF is E. So it changes with respect to time. Whereas peak value of the EMF remains constant, that is E naught. peak value of the current remains constant, that is represented by I naught. If we graphically show variation of EMF with respect to omega t, what is omega t? Phase. So we are taking EMF on y-axis, of course instantaneous EMF, and on x-axis we are taking omega t. Minimum value of EMF is equal to 0 to begin with, means when the coil is about to start its rotation, that time phase is omega t, that is equal to 0, there is no EMF generated. When coil completes quarter rotation, that time phase is pi by 2. When coil completes half rotation, phase is pi. When coil completes third quarter rotation, phase is 3 pi by 2. And when coil completes one complete rotation, the phase is 2 pi. And for that, with the help of equation E is equal to E naught sin omega t, if you obtain values of EMF for various phase values, the nature of the graph you will get like this. Here, when the phase is pi by 2, EMF has maximum value, and that maximum value of EMF we represent by E naught plus E naught, just to indicate EMF is maximum on one side. When the phase is pi, EMF reaches to 0 value. When the phase is 3 pi by 2, EMF is also peak value, but in the opposite direction. And in opposite direction, we represent it by minus E naught. So whether it is plus E naught or minus E naught, it is a maximum value of the EMF. Plus and minus sign indicate only that the induced EMF changes its direction, or they are in opposite direction. So here we have to keep in mind that minimum value of EMF is 0 when the phase is 0, pi or 2 pi. But the peak value of EMF is E naught when the phase is pi by 2 and when the phase is 3 pi by 2, but in opposite direction. So induced EMF varies sinusoidally with time. Why is the word sinusoidally used? Because variation is as like sine function. The direction of EMF is reversed after every half revolution of the coil. So this nature of the graph you get in half rotation, and the next part of the graph you get in next half rotation or revolution. This type of EMF is called alternating EMF because it is alternating in direction. In one half cycle, EMF is in one direction, in next half cycle it is in the opposite direction, and corresponding current is also called as alternating current. Alternating voltages and current go through all values between 0 and peak value in one cycle, hence their mean or average value over a full cycle is always 0. So we have seen in earlier graph which clarifies the things. Peak value of an alternating current or EMF is the maximum value of current or EMF in either direction. And that's why if you find average value over a complete cycle, it will be always 0. That's why whenever we find average or mean value, we consider only half cycle. So the average value of all the values of voltage or current over half cycle is called average or mean value of AC. Average value of sin theta in the range from 0 radians to pi radians is given by, here mod sign is there which represents average. So average value of sin theta is given by the formula, of course over a half cycle, is given by the formula average value of sin theta is equal to integration from 0 to pi of sin theta d theta divided by integration from 0 to pi of d theta. Here we have to read this as integration of sin theta with respect to theta, where the limits are from 0 to pi, and at the denominator it is integration of d theta, limits from 0 to pi. Integration of d theta, we also say that integration of 1 with respect to theta, limits from 0 to pi. Now according to the rules of integration, integration of sin theta is minus cos theta, and limits we write lower limit at the bottom, upper limit at the top, limits are from 0 to pi. And integration of 1 with respect to theta is theta, and limits are also from 0 to pi. Now we have to replace variable. What is variable here? Theta by upper and lower limit. So minus cos theta, initially we are replacing theta by pi, and in minus cos theta, afterwards we replace theta by 0, and that's why minus cos of pi minus, now we are replacing minus cos theta, where theta we are replacing by 0, and that's why minus cos of 0. To the denominator, theta we are replacing by pi, upper limit, minus theta replacing by lower limit, that is 0. So we get this average value of sin theta, it is equal to 2 upon pi. With this, you get value of average value of sin theta equal to 0.637. So average value of current or EMF is equal to 0.637 times its peak value. So average value of the current, which is represented by I average, is 0.637 times the peak value of the current, and average value of EMF is 0.637 times the peak value of EMF. Now the next topic that we have to discuss is root mean square value of alternating current. Now why this root mean square value is introduced? That is because again we know that the average value of current or EMF over a complete cycle is 0, and if you are using moving coil ammeter or moving coil voltmeter, then in that case average value over the complete cycle is always 0, and that's why we introduce the concept of root mean square value of the alternating current. So as said, a moving coil ammeter and voltmeter measure the average value of current and voltage applied across it. The average value cannot be used to specify on alternating current or voltage because its value is 0 over one cycle and cannot be used for power calculations. Therefore, we must search for more suitable criteria to measure the effectiveness of an alternating current or voltage. And the obvious choice would be to measure it in terms of direct current that would do the same work or produce same amount of heat as the same average rate as AC under similar conditions. The quantity heat is chosen as it does not depend upon the changes in the direction of the current. Heat depends upon the square of the current, which is always positive irrespective of the direction of the current. Means whether current is positive or negative, the square of the current is always positive. The equivalent direct current is called the root mean square value of the current. We have started with the chapter AC circuits, in which we have studied two types of currents, alternating current, direct current. We also revised Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, Lenz's law, and after that we discuss about what is the mean value of the current and RMS value of the current. Thank you.